coming home to our bodies.
It's a nice expression.
Yeah.
Coming home to our bodies.
Our bodies remember everything that we've ever experienced. Emotions, physical memory, memory of being with others. So it is really ultimately through the body that we can transform. In Chinese medicine, for me, one of the reasons I love it so much is because it so much expresses the body in poetic terms and in terms relating parts of our body to nature and the world around us. And I just find it really beautiful how it describes the body. And that's
Yeah,
what
your
through it.
past books have been very factual and technical and aimed at people who are studying that area,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
content is aimed at educating. But I guess what you're saying is you want to make this material more accessible to the general public,
Yeah.
who are the people that Shiatsu reaches anyway. All of us, we're still the general public.
Yeah.
But I think even as a Shiatsu practitioner, um, having things stripped away from all the sort of technical and jargon and Chinese medicine or science or anatomical definitions brings it home, like you were saying, that it brings you home to your body, something like that. And to kind of make it more contextual so you understand it for yourself in your everyday life.
Yeah, and in your own body. And that, to be honest, that's also how I've developed my work and my teaching and my practice, is also through developing my understanding of my body. And obviously that's not the only part of the process, but that is quite an important part. And that was how the ancient Chinese discovered a lot of what they discovered, was through meditation, through qigong, through connecting with the body and through connecting with the environment, and then evolving the theory. They didn't really start in an academic way, as far as I understand. They started with working with the body and being more connected with their environment, which most of us are. Well, we're not connected with our environment in the same way that the ancient or any traditional people were, who were much ruled by more ruled by the changes in the seasons. Although perhaps we are becoming more aware of the natural world now, as we have to be, because we've changed the natural world so much, and now the natural world is like, come on, take notice of me again.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting actually that you said that Shiatsu came about through the doing and the movements and the qigong and the practice, and then the theory came about afterwards, which kind of explains why trying to explain Shiatsu to someone can be difficult. It's easy if someone's experienced Shiatsu. I mean, for me, a lot of clients go, "Oh, this is so wonderful. This is, so different from standard massage. How come more people don't know about it?" So they've experienced it first. But then how do you then explain Shiatsu to someone who's never experienced it?
That's the big question, isn't it? And I think if we knew the answer to that, shiatsu would be more widely known. I sometimes wonder if even the name is slightly off-putting. Shiatsu, because it's a Japanese name meaning finger pressure. Sometimes, but then acupressure, sometimes people say to me, well, what's the difference between shiatsu and acupressure? To be honest, I'm not completely sure, because I think some people use acupressure to describe shiatsu. I know that technically, often people say the difference is that acupressure is just working on specific points, but I'm not sure in reality if that is always the case. And maybe that's part of the reason that shiatsu and acupressure are not so well known, because it's not so clear, even amongst the profession, what we actually mean by it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's shiatsu, acupuncture people seem to understand what acupuncture is, and what Thai yoga massage maybe less so, or massage is. So sometimes combining, saying, well, actually I kind of don't do that anymore, comparing yourself to other therapies can be good to give people a reference and a context, but then you're almost scamming or taking away, you're kind of sharing a definition of another practice, whereas shiatsu is wonderful and all encompassing in itself. I mean, my definition of shiatsu constantly changes, a bit like your process of writing books constantly changes. You know, I kind of often say to people, do you feel stress, pain, tension? And do you want to feel you can move better, feel better, stay better through movement and self-inquiry and massage and touch? That's what shiatsu is. Because it kind of explains what people come to you with, and then what they can take away from it for themselves. It doesn't describe it in one sentence, and it doesn't describe it in one word, but you're right about the word shiatsu doesn't really cut it.
Yeah, that's what I think, that maybe it does need another word, because I'm sure it is off-putting to some people and it just sounds a bit exotic. But maybe it isn't the word as well. Maybe we just need to explain more what it is. And I agree with you that it's why I tend not to use acupressure, is because I think people will simply think it is acupuncture, but with your thumb. And as you've just described, and I agree with you, it's movement, it's breath, it's stretching, it's as well as pressure. And it is a little bit like Thai massage in that you've got the stretches. And often what I say to people is that we're also acupuncturists are only working the points, but we're working the spaces between the points as well. And because of that, also because we're working with our hands, we can be a bit more, we can change more, can't we? And we can actually work the whole body. For me in a shiatsu, I do try and get a balance, at least, even if I'm not working. Obviously in one session we can't work all the points and all the meridians, but I do try to do some work with the lower body and the feet, some work with the center of the body, some work with the upper body, so that I do connect with the whole of somebody's body in some way, even if I'm focusing more on certain aspects than others.
Yeah, and like you said, certain therapies, it is just, you know, working one point, or someone comes with a shoulder issue, you just work on the shoulder. But with shiatsu, you've got two hands, or actually lots of tools. You've also got your feet to work with people. But the combination of making those connections between two areas of somebody, so that they don't just go, this is a problem. They kind of go, well, here's the problem. Where's my strength that can help it and support it? Because very often you can't release anything unless you feel safe, secure and grounded first. If you did just release, you'd end up all out over the place. You know, you need that grounding. And that's why for me shiatsu is really set apart from a lot of other therapies, in that sense that it gives that support with one hand and one area of your body, and then you can start to help release. But adding to that, what it also means is that you get to see, you have to have self-inquiry. For me, it's not just I'm doing a shiatsu. I always check in with the client so that they're feeling what I'm doing. And I question, how does this feel? What do you notice? And through making them aware of what's happening, rather than them go into this dreamlike, wonderful relaxation state, which is great, they're also able to tune into that relaxed state. Why is it that they're relaxed? And then therefore, oh, what is connected? Oh, and how can I then help myself going forward? So they've got something to take away afterwards. They're not just dropping themselves in, going back to their habits. They're coming, we're guiding them to making these connections so that they can basically find their own potential themselves and feel self-sufficient without us.
I completely agree. And I actually recently I've been using the phrase to explain some of my work with extraordinary vessels about it's helping us to find our infinite potential and to realize that we do have an infinite potential within us. And in fact, my main Shiatsu teacher, her center was called the Healing Shiatsu Education Center, because that very much what you've talked about, that process of self-inquiry, about people being involved. She always see the role of Shiatsu as educating people about themselves and about their bodies and understanding their bodies better. And we were always taught not to say I'm treating somebody, but I'm supporting somebody. And I must admit, the more I work with people, the more I do really believe that they are the ones that know their body, their physical body, their emotional body, more than we can ever know as a therapist or a practitioner. And our role is to support them to understand more about themselves and to give them tools and to open up possibilities within their body. But ultimately, it's their body that's doing the work. We're just support. We're a support. We're like a little key in a door. We're opening doorways. In fact, that's often how some of the points are seen, aren't they? It's described as doorways into this whole infinite realm of possibilities.
Yeah, it's true. And a metaphor, or not a metaphor, another sort of context came up. Like, for example, if I was suffering from something emotionally and I didn't talk about it, and it just went round and round in my head, it just does that, and then we get stressed. Equally, it doesn't really feel helpful for me necessarily to just get someone telling me what's helpful, because that's just one-sided. And that's why, when you have a problem, if you just talk to someone, whether it's a friend, a therapist, a counselor, anything, even the act of just expressing it, almost before they even said anything, it acts as a mirror back. And you quite often, I don't know if you've ever found, you ask someone a question that's troubling you, just the act of asking the question, your answer just comes for yourself anyway. And for me, Shiatsu is a bit like that. It's not that we are gurus going, we know your body. It's that actually we're helping facilitate the wisdom, the infinite wisdom that's within people, so that through making them aware of their body more, that they weren't necessarily aware of, and the movement and aiding their own movement, allows them to express themselves physically, because that is a conduit to their emotions anyway, so that then they can go, oh, I mean, the amount of clients that have gone, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
And
I love it when there's that moment, because it's oh yeah, you do understand, and I can have some understanding, but you're the person that can put it together. And then like you say, I love the way you said about when we talk about something with someone, whoever it is, it already starts transforming it. And that's what we're doing with the body. And because the body holds also all the physical memory and all the emotional memory, then the person can draw up things from the past that that they didn't even realize were there. That happens to me so many times with clients. I work on something with them, they've started expressing something, and then by the end of the session they become aware of this whole other layer of stuff that had been kind of buried in their unconscious or they'd forgotten about, and then that's kind of come up, and through working with the body, but also through, like you say, the talking part is also important, because sometimes I find, well, often I find when people start talking about what's going on, then it's already doing something in the body, and then that's what I'm feeling as I'm working. And then as I work with the body, then the body starts talking to itself through the body. Often I say that to people, I'm feeling that I'm connecting different bits of your body up together so that they can get in touch with each other. So you're getting in touch with yourself, and then you ultimately know the answers.
Yeah, exactly. And that those answers would never have come up if that process hadn't started. I mean, it surprises me, it surprises them, and it's just amazing what can come out of it, really.
I mean, you talked about, we have talked about why shiatsu is not so well known. And I think one of the reasons is because in this modern society, we feel that we need to have evidence-based research to justify this time and this energy that people are putting into that. And indeed, many years ago, I was actually part of a project in my local hospital. We were trying to set up a randomized control trial to prove that shiatsu, well, not to prove, because obviously it's to see, but to see whether shiatsu would have an effect on, the purpose of that trial was basically induction of labour, whether it would help women go into labour. But it was really hard to get the research funding for it, because people were saying, the people with the funding were saying, but there isn't research to prove that it's effective, so therefore why we should be spending money, which, you know, I found a bit difficult. But the other main problem with it is because what we're working with is so much more than one simple effect. It's working with the whole of someone's life history, and we do the same thing on different people, it's going to have completely different effects. So it's actually quite hard to measure it in the randomized control trial model, unless you look, because you have to look for some very specific effect. And I think you can only really research it in terms of more qualitative research, which again people have done, but it's only small numbers of clients, and like their overall benefits to their lifestyle and health and emotional and physical health. But these kind of projects require a huge investment of time and a huge investment of money, and nobody's seemed so far willing to put that money and time into researching shiatsu. So I think for me that is one of the reasons why it is less valued, because it hasn't got objective scientific evidence saying yes, it's good. Although there are many studies on the benefits of acupuncture, there are many studies on the benefits of touch, and many studies on lots of the aspects of things that we do include within a shiatsu session.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it definitely does have quantitative benefits and tangible benefits, but as you said, maybe trying to fit the benefits of shiatsu into the narrow specifics of science-based research, it doesn't cut it, because shiatsu does help in so many aspects of our life. It's not just the physical, it's also the emotional, the mental, the spiritual. Did I say that? But I mean, it's interesting. What's sort of coming more to the surface is well-being and our mental health. And I think shiatsu bridges the mental health and our physical health, and it actually supports both. I wonder if there's a way of bringing those two kinds of research into a way that people could tangibly understand how shiatsu can help.
Yeah, well, I agree, because there's lots of research on the benefits of touch, of meditation. And okay, shiatsu isn't meditation in and of itself, but it's actually taking people into quite meditative states, actually. So there are many different things that converge with shiatsu. And that's also why it's difficult to research, because there are so many variables, and because each practitioner brings their own it's a relational therapy as well, isn't it? They're bringing their own relationship is part of the process. So you'd need to study quite a large number of practitioners and clients over quite an extensive period of time. I mean, some studies have been done and they are showing that it works. And we all know from our experience that it works, because I wouldn't keep doing it if I didn't believe it did have an effect. I wouldn't feel comfortable with doing something if I didn't feel it was enabling people to experience all the different things that we've said.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think for me personally, being a practitioner and a teacher, just the whole journey from learning to not practicing to actually be a facilitator doing shiatsu, and then a teacher, which is also a facilitator. I felt that it's the first time in my life that I learnt something that I could totally embody myself. For starters, it made learning shiatsu the most pleasurable, or not necessarily pleasurable because it brings up your own stuff, but most educational and nourishing course, 3 years, 4 years, probably, well, ongoing, that I've ever done in my life. More than sitting in a lecture and learning, you're learning a skill, you're improving yourself. So it's the first time in my life that I've actually felt that from learning, that I've got something for myself. So you're right, to see a shiatsu practitioner is quite special, because that person is not only dedicated, they've spent 3 years of their time and money, that they must have wanted to invest that and themselves into it in order to help people, because we must believe that it works, because it's already worked or working for ourselves.
And also yes, and as you say, working with clients and as a teacher, which I also am, working with students, seeing the changes that happen in their lives. I feel really inspired by that. And when I go through questioning or doubt, and then often people say, but this was really amazing, and this really helped me transform this, and I have this new understanding about myself. And that keeps me inspired, even though in the mainstream, I just get upset that it doesn't really have the place that it has. And that, in terms of why I wrote some of my books, was partly to help Shiatsu take what I feel is the place that it deserves within our healthcare system. But not just the physical health. Like you say, it's in mental, emotional well-being. Yeah. And actually, one of the main Shiatsu teachers in Japan, one of the modern Shiatsu teachers in Japan, I think I do love his way that he explained what Shiatsu is, and that partly inspired me to give the name to my company, which it was Namikoshi, and he said, the heart of Shiatsu is mother's love, is the love of the mother. And it's that mothering, nurturing, a mother who can fully be present for her child, who can fully support her child to grow and to thrive and to flourish on a physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, on all those different levels. It's the ideal mother who can support her child in that way. And the embodiment of that is really the way that a mother holds her baby and touches her baby. And like you say, that creating of a safe space is very fundamental to Shiatsu.
Yeah, especially in the West, where we're not so comfortable, or perhaps in Britain, where we're not so comfortable with physical interaction, especially now. That Shiatsu's ever more important for people to engage with. And it kind of made me think, actually, that the reason that it's not so well known is that because it's hard to describe, but maybe the way for people to find out more about it is that clients that come to us for shiatsu, maybe we could encourage them to share their experiences of how it has benefited them, not just to their friends and family, but to health professionals, maybe their doctors that they see for health conditions, to actually go back to their doctor and say, thank you for your your support and your advice, and maybe if there is medication they provided, but did you know that what else also helped me was shiatsu? And then help, maybe we could get the clients to share their experiences to then help educate. So it's not just coming from us, who obviously we want everyone to know about what we do, but clients have got no agenda. They're just simply sharing the benefits of how they've been helped.
Yeah, and when you were saying about how it's so important these days, because like you, my experience of going into shiatsu was after having been I was in university and academically in the academic world, and so I was really only connected more with my head. I mean, obviously I was reasonably fit, I wasn't unhealthy, but I was way overstimulated in this part of my body and way not stimulated fully in the rest of my body, and that's getting worse. I mean, that was over 30 years ago, and we didn't have computers in the same kind of way. We didn't have mobile phones, and I think actually people are more and more in this little kind of box. Okay, we're using technology now, on a screen, and it's really important more than ever to connect with the rest of ourselves. And shiatsu is a really powerful way of doing that. And more people are becoming aware of that. And there's now this whole term that people are using, which I think shiatsu does fall nicely under, which is embodiment, like helping people to be more in their body, more embodied, more fully present, not just in their head. And shiatsu for me is probably one of the most powerful ways that we can do that, because it does involve movements. It involves yoga type things, qigong type things, breathing, meditation. For me, that's all part of shiatsu. And the touch not just on a physical level, like with massage and osteopathy and all these things, which I think are really amazing. But shiatsu has also that awareness, not just of the physical body, of muscles, of bones, of blood, of tissue, but also the energetic body, which is the whole basis of Chinese medicine. And the energetic body is really seeing that we are part of the whole universe. We're not just in this little physical body, but we're constantly being influenced by our environment, by other people, but by the whole world, by the whole universe. And if we can connect ourselves into this wholeness, that's how we can support the infinite potential, because we're opening up to bigger forces than just within our physical body. And that's what shiatsu can support people to do.
Yeah, I mean, what comes from that when you do become aware of your interconnectedness with the universe and how that influences is, yes, there's two sides to it. You can get support knowing that you're not on your own in this world, that there is this connection with other people. But on the other side, there is that, this can influence you too much. And unless you're able in your awareness to kind of objectively become aware, that's important. You're not just going, this is really affecting me negatively, oh God, and then you become a victim of it. Unless you become objectively aware, then you're able to differentiate what is yours, what is theirs, what is outside, what is inside. And that's why it's important to come back to yourself and find that self-sufficiency, self-nurture, self-responsibility that only you can give once you've felt safe to do that. then you can go back out into the world and share with other people and get support and find out what you don't want in your life and what you do want to welcome. So there is that need to connect, but also to connect inside, not just.
Oh, I 100% agree. It's like we are in a physical body, and our emotions and our whole being is housed within this physical body. So and we are different from other people, although we're all part of a whole. So it's understanding the nature of our own being, but also not forgetting that we do have access. So when I say the outer world, yes, there are things in the outer world that can have detrimental effects on us. But if we go even bigger to like the infinity potential, so it's not, the Chinese weren't just talking about planet Earth, but the whole universe and infinity, and that we're part of an infinite energy field, which in fact is what quantum physicists talk about, and the infinite potential, and the macro and the micro level, even though they haven't figured out totally how you can have a theory of everything, but that the macro and the micro level, so the cellular level and also the bigger level, are intimately interconnected. And so for me, it's being aware of the responsibility of my own body, but not forgetting the very big connection. And the way that I connect with that mostly is through meditation, but also that presence that I have when I'm receiving or giving shiatsu, of like, I'm actually working with a wholeness here.
Yeah, definitely. For me, getting meditation really helps me connect with that objective awareness that there is that, well, even within us, there's this very human level that gets pain, feels depressed, gets injured. But then there's this very true essence within us, or is it within us, that is just is. but that this human experience could not have without it. And being, for me, a meditation, and even through doing shiatsu and teaching shiatsu or qigong, or doing qigong for myself or sharing it with others, allows me to sometimes see what is my human habitual stuff and what is my intrinsic self or my instinctive self that doesn't get affected by emotions, doesn't get make decisions, it just is. It's just constant, unwavering. And both are valid. It's not saying this is better than that, because if it wasn't for this, this wouldn't have anything to be objectively aware about, They're both, for me, that's part of my thing. My website is called A Fine Balance, and it's finding the unity between the two of them, not for them to be at odds with each other and human emotion battling this. It's about, right, how can we get these two to unite? Just like you can unite nations, or unite people, or unite anything.
Well, to remember that we are all interconnected. So also, if we work on ourselves, we are also supporting everybody else. And that's one thing we haven't said about shiatsu, but which is a really beautiful part of being a shiatsu practitioner, is that we always say that it's a relationship, and giving shiatsu, we're also receiving shiatsu in a way, because we're entering into this movement and exchange, which is, so it's a really, like you said, it's a really lovely thing to be giving shiatsu, because it's actually helping us to be more connected with our own potential as a practitioner. While we're giving, we're connecting into this field of infinite potential for our client, but also for ourselves.